Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the Maelstrom of Jedi and got Harem? Part 1. Huge shout out to Thayer Blue 1 for this story. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. A blonde boy of about 12 years of age was standing in the high Jedi council chambers before two of his heroes, Jedi Grandmaster Yoda and Jedi Master Mace Windu. His normally sparkling blue eyes were full of sadness. He was covered with horrible scars including whisker marks burned into his cheeks that were all carved into his body with the plasma edge of a lightsaber. Those were the scars on the outside. The scars within were much, much deeper. Mace Windu said, "Naruto Uzumaki, we have considered your request and after a long debate among the Jedi Council have decided that your decision to leave the Jedi Order is the correct course of action. The terrible torture you had to endure at the hands of your former comrades was too much for anyone to handle, and the fact you've made such a mature decision is a credit to both you and your forebears. I want you to know that your parents Minato and Kushina would have been proud of you. I realize these words may seem hollow to you, but it is time to move on and forget about the past. Personally, I am truly sad to see you go. It has been a pleasure knowing you." Yoda said sadly, "Find those responsible for this atrocity, we will. Bring them to justice, we promise you. Remember young Naruto, the Force will be with you, always." The former Padawan went to pack his things and leave the Grand Jedi Temple forever. Flashback. As Jedi Master Jiraiya had defended Naruto to the death only for young Uzumaki to fall into a trap himself on the way back to their ship. There was a large group of Padawans and Masters gathered on the planet Onderon in the Japral system. No one knew exactly why, but when Jiraiya and Naruto landed there to investigate, the Jedi gathered there turned upon them in ambush. It had been a hellish experience, and Naruto felt as if his connection with the Force was severed as he was tortured. The ones torturing him were fellow Padawans much to the young blonde's horror. Their hoods were up and their eyes glowed gold like some sort of evil reptiles would. He heard them chanting in some language he didn't understand, but one girl said in Galactic Basic, "Reach out for the darkness because the light will not save you." Naruto wasn't without options though. As he felt the various lightsabers etching tribal designs into his body, he turned his focus within and found the chakra that his people were said to have. He felt an explosion of power within, and his torturers screamed as if blinded. No one on his homeworld Rinatasia had unlocked their chakra since legendary times, but Naruto knew that's what it was. When the young blonde came to he was back aboard Jiraiya's ship horribly wounded and scarred. He told the ship's nav computer to take him to the Jedi Temple and collapsed in the pilot's seat. The next time Naruto woke up he was in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant in a Bacta tank and felt more dead than alive. Flashback end. Jedi High Council room. "A tragic loss, this is," said Grandmaster Yoda. Master Mundi nodded. "He is the chosen one, to lose him. Naruto himself believed he was tainted in some way," said Master Windu. "He left for all of our sakes, not his own selfish reasons." Master Plo Koon added, and mere days after, Master Qui-Gon Jinn discovered another this is no mere coincidence. Grand Jedi Temple, front stairs. Naruto was on his way out to parts unknown when he crossed paths with a rather unassuming man, Senator Sheev Palpatine, who was on his way to the Jedi Council to seek their guidance revolving around the Naboo crises. The senator was currently in the running to become the new Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, and many would have found it strange for him to stop and talk to a mere boy. Sheev saw the facial scars on Naruto and raised his eyebrows. "Young Uzumaki, is that you my boy?" The blonde glanced over at Palpatine and greeted him respectfully. "Senator Palpatine, how are you today?" The senator looked at Naruto for a moment and said quietly, "I heard about your master Jiraiya. He was a great man. Please accept my condolences. It must have been absolutely soul-crushing for you." "Jiraiya died to protect me," said Naruto. "I will always honor him." Sheev nodded in sympathy, "Of course you will my boy. Just take it slowly. The grieving process takes time." Then he said reassuringly, "I'm sure your new master will help you through these hard times." Naruto said sadly, "I have no new master senator. I am no longer in the Jedi Order." Palpatine was shocked. "This wasn't supposed to happen. The Jedi Consilthi threw you out, this is an outrage. A young man of your prodigious talent shouldn't be thrown away like trash. Let me talk to them." The blonde smiled sadly and said, "It was my idea to leave Senator, not theirs. I bear no ill will against the Jedi Order. They raised me after all." "But what about those that attacked you?" asked a politician. "You could be in danger my boy." Sheev smiled and said, "Why don't you join me for a while till you get back to your old self? If the Jedi don't want you then I can certainly see your potential." Naruto shook his head and said, "Thank you for your kindness Senator, but I must be going. I have a ship waiting to go out system. If you are ever in need, remember my door will always be open to you Naruto," said the senator sadly. "Until we meet again." said Naruto. May the force be with you. The young man took off without waiting for a reply. This didn't go according to the plan. Thought Palpatine darkly. What went wrong on Onderon? Galactic Senate Building, Chancellor Sheev Palpatine's quarters. The Naboo crisis was over and both Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul were dead. The new Chancellor had just returned from Naboo and was seething. Darth Sidious thought to himself, young Uzumaki had such enormous potential. I had my agents follow him and the boy just vanished. Luckily I have found a replacement in young Anakin Skywalker. There is much fear in that one. I just have to nurture it slowly and gently until he joins the dark side. For now I'll have to contact Count Dooku and tell him to set the plan in motion. Year 26 BBY. Outer Rim Territories, Centrality Sector, Planet Rhinatasia 3, outskirts of Mathilde City. Naruto awoke to another day in the quiet pastoral sector of Rhinatasia, where the major industry was herding nerfs for the people that lived in the city. He yawned and stretched before mentally greeting his spirit partner Kurama. Good morning Kurama. He said mentally. I'm 18 today, what should we do to celebrate? You mean aside of the coming of age ceremony at the Temple of the Fox? Asked Kurama with a yawn. I have no idea. Maybe we could go bow hunting. Naruto thought back to how he discovered his furry companion 6 years ago. Flashback. Naruto had just returned to Rhinatasia on a tramp cargo freighter all the way from Coruscant. It was the end of the line when the ship arrived in Mathilde City. The blonde was almost healed physically but in constant pain from the scars. Traveling out to the countryside where the school he would be attending was at, Naruto was reminiscing when he heard a thundering voice in his head. About time you heard me. I've been calling you ever since you woke me up on Onderon. The blonde went bug-eyed and mentally said, who's there? Am I dreaming? No moron, you are not dreaming. I am Kurama the mighty QB no Kitsune. Said Kurama. My power has manifested within you. You should be honored. Said the ancient fox haughtily. Naruto's sweat dropped and then cried in I'm tears. You're that imaginary fox friend I had as a little kid. Oh by the old gods. I've lost it. I'm going to have to be on medicine the rest of my life. Now it was Kurama's turn to sweat drop. Look Naruto, I am one of the old gods. You're not crazy. Trust me. The blonde beeped an eyebrow. Okay say you are an old god. How did you get here? The fox sighed. Well, obviously you are a descendant or reincarnation of one of my earlier containers. This is a good thing Naruto. How so? Asked Naruto. Kurama replied, you now have access to the inner force of chakra and the outer force of the midichlorians and I can train you better than anyone. The blonde sighed sadly. But I'm cut off from the force Kurama. I can no longer be a Jedi. Besides, I left the order. You mean those silly Sith runes carved into your body? Asked the ancient fox. I'll just do some tweaking to your body and get rid of the bad scars. Naruto's eyes widened, what do you mean by tweak my body? Am I going to turn into a fox or something? Now that would be cool. Gushed Kurama. Ahem sadly, no. What I am going to do is increase your body's ability to heal about tenfold. Basically you'll be granted a healing factor that allows your body to recover at a rapid pace from injuries. You can do that? Asked the 12-year-old excitedly. That's so wild. Of course I can. Replied the fox. The scars will be gone in no time and all that will be left are the whisker marks and the other useful ones. The blonde asked cautiously, how are they useful? I will explain it all in due time my apprentice in foxhood. Replied Kurama all in due time. And thus a friendship was born. Flashback end. Naruto was heading towards Mathilde City on his speeder bike to participate in the coming-of-age ceremony that would make him a spiritual adult when he saw smoke coming from the city. He saw masses of transports coming out of the sky and recognized the types. Trade Federation transports. This is an invasion. Thought the blonde as he recalled the Naboo crises a few years ago. Naruto was a volunteer pilot in the Rhinatasian Defense Force and raced towards the landing field he was to report to should there be a national emergency. Dispersal Landing Field M22. Naruto arrived at the landing field and saw a lineup of slightly worn Delta 7 Aethersprite interceptors. They were only about 6 years old and in good order, but the dirt and paint corrosion were a bit obvious. The 12 ships were painted olive green and black to blend in with the forested terrain and area. They were spread out so if the field was attacked that the fighters wouldn't all be destroyed at once. This was the Outskirts Squadron 4, call sign. Blackbird. The blonde rode up on his speeder and reported into the squadron intelligence officer. He handed his citizen identification card to the officer who scanned it and said, Naruto Uzumaki, volunteer pilot officer. You have over 100 hours flying time and are assigned as Blackbird 9. Here's a helmet, the flight suits have all been handed out already. Report to Squadron Commander Roche at once for your orders. Brissa Roche was a tall woman with spiky lilac hair that was in a ponytail. She was very much a disciplinarian. She's probably the only reason this squadron is flight ready and she's sexy. thought Naruto lecherously as he walked up and saluted. Volunteer pilot Naruto Uzumaki reporting for duty, Commander Roche. She turned to Naruto and said, Uzumaki, my favorite stunt pilot. Are you ready for this? Naruto grinned, I'm ready to fly, Commander. He said with a wink. Grissa smiled back and said, make sure you come back alive. That's an order. Where is your flight suit? The intelligence officer said they were all assigned already. Replied the blonde nonplussed. She sweat dropped. Well, you've got a helmet at least. We'll get you a flight suit when one becomes available. Get to your fighter. Go. The blonde remembered Master Jiraiya's words of advice on fighter-to-fighter combat as he climbed into the cockpit. Get in as close as you can before firing. You're usually further away than you think. You get shot down by the one you don't see. Scan the stars constantly, you need to see them before they see you. Never get separated from your flight if you can help it. Naruto sighed before firing up the engines, activating the shields and charging his twin laser cannons. Thanks, Jiraiya. He whispered. This is Blackbird 9. I'm ready for takeoff. He said into his comm. Link. Blackbird leader to Blackbird squadron, lift off. Said Commander Roche. As the ether sprites roared off of the ground, Naruto wondered how many of them would make it back alive. The squadron took off in a staggered formation to intercept the transports before they could land their battle droids at the capital of Matheld. This is Blackbird leader. Flight C, intercept the fighters flying top cover. And B flights will attack the transports. This is Blackbird 9, acknowledged. Replied Naruto. C flight, form up on me. This is Blackbird 10, roger. Blackbird 11, I copy. Blackbird 12, understood. Naruto and C flight quickly ascended and accelerated to face the onslaught of Trade Federation Vulture-class droids starfighters. Actually, they accelerated too fast. Where are they? Asked Blackbird 11. Below us. Replied Naruto. Break right and stay in formation. Remember, one pass and haul ass. Tally-ho! Yelled Blackbird 11 as he accelerated back towards Rinatasia. The 4 Delta 7s dove from above and behind the vultures and Naruto managed to shoot one down. His blue eyes sparked with chakra as he rapidly climbed back with his ether sprite clawing for altitude. Blackbird 10 was still with him, but 11 and 12 were nowhere to be seen. The blonde made another pass through the droid formation and shot down another vulture, as did his wingman. By that point the droid fighters had scattered their formation and the whole sky seemed to be full of laser bolts, explosions and fighters, from the blonde's point of view. As Naruto climbed for another pass he noted the vultures were retreating and the sky was suddenly clear. Glancing over at Blackbird 10, Naruto called, this is Blackbird 9. C flight, check in. Blackbird 10 standing by. Blackbird 12 here, standing by. Naruto ordered his flight to form up and circled above Matheld, while the rest of Blackbird's squadron shot up the transports below. This is Blackbird 9, come in Blackbird 11. Called Naruto. Then he called control. Blackbird 9 to M22, we've lost contact with Blackbird 11. Copy that Blackbird 9. Answered M22. Maintain patrol until recalled. An hour later Blackbird C flight was back at the M22 field. Blackbird 11 was already there having been shot to ribbons due to overshooting the target. The pilot, Baum, was badly shaken up but alive. His fighter was a write-off though. C flight had 6 kills between them, 3 for Naruto, and managed to come back alive. The rest of Blackbird's squadron had a field day. The slow, ponderous transports the Trade Federation employed were easy meat for the ether sprites. And so it went for nearly 6 weeks. Blackbird's squadron was in the thick of combat flying 2 to 3 sorties a day until there wasn't a Blackbird squadron left. Replacement pilots and fighters never covered their losses and the field was soon being bombarded by droid tanks and droid troopers on the ground. Naruto ended up trapped in a partially collapsed bunker for the night with Commander Roche. As the explosions rained down she said, we're going to die here Naruto. Then she kissed him like a fallen angel. Naruto was mesmerized as Grissa Roche opened her flight suit and exposed her luscious friezes to him. Then there was another explosion. And another, and another. Naruto and Grissa made love frantically in the dirt of the collapsed bunker all night, like a pair of terrified children, knowing they'd never see the morning sun. Naruto woke up in the morning to the peaceful sounds of Roche's soft breathing. He'd lost his virginity to a beautiful woman that he fantasized about. The blonde felt incredibly happy inside. She soon woke up and kissed him in the silence before they both got dressed and looked out of the slots of the bunker windows. Naruto wanted to say something to her, anything to convey how he felt, but Grissa shushed him and the pair sneaked back to Matheld City for them. Their little part of the war was over. 2 weeks later the invasion attempt was over and the Trade Federation fully withdrew having decided that the bloody battle wasn't worth it with the appalling losses they'd suffered. Everyone was celebrating the victory and the lilac-haired beauty took Naruto to a hotel to give him another night of fantasy. It was a joyous occasion, and Naruto was completely enraptured by his wonderful lover. The next morning Naruto got up only to find Grissa was dressed already. She looked ill. Naruto asked, "Grissa, are you alright?" She gave him a watery smile and said, "Last night was wonderful Naruto, but we can't carry on like this, I'm married." The blonde felt a feeling of revulsion and self-loathing deep within, and he choked out, "Married?" Grissa nodded. "I should have told you, but I knew you weren't that kind of guy. I'm sorry Naruto, but I can't leave my husband for you. I was going to say goodbye in a note, but you're so beautiful, please forgive me. Please keep this affair between us." Naruto shed a tear and said in a hollow voice, "My lips are sealed." Then she walked out of the room and out of his life. A week later Naruto was attending a military ceremony representing Blackbird Squadron and didn't see Commander Grissa Roche anywhere. A member high command pinned an award for his participation in the war that really didn't mean anything to Naruto. It turned out Rinatasia's war was ended by the intervention of the Republic and more importantly the Jedi Order. When the Jedi arrived, the resolve of the Trade Federation collapsed like a house of cards. The blonde felt depressed and empty, but felt a presence in the force that he hadn't felt in a very long time. "Naruto Uzumaki," called a voice. He looked at the source and saw Mace Windu. "Master Windu?" asked the blonde. Naruto smiled and bowed. "It's an honor to see you again, sir." Mace grinned slightly. "Look at you Naruto. You shine again in the force. I could sense you from orbit. What are you doing out here in the Centrality Sector?" "This is my homeworld, Master Windu," answered the 18-year-old. The veteran Jedi Master asked, "Then you've joined the military?" Naruto shook his head and said, "I was strictly a volunteer." Master Windu looked deeply into Naruto's blue eyes and said, "You've recovered from your ordeal then?" It was a statement rather than a question. The blonde nodded and said, "Yes master, I have." "Do you have anything here Naruto?" asked the Jedi Master. Naruto saw a flash of Grissa in his mind's eye, but let it go. A sight of going back to nerf herding? Not really. Master Windu looked shocked for a second and said, "You aren't serious about being a nerf herder, are you?" The blonde nodded. "I needed some peaceful times to recover from my wounds." "What would you think about coming back to Coruscant?" asked the Jedi Master. "I believe the Jedi Order would welcome your return." Giving a genuine smile, Naruto asked, "When do we leave?" "Outskirts of Mathilde City." Naruto was packing his things in a backpack and wondering what would happen in the future. Something deep inside him foresaw dark times ahead. They all seemed to whirl around an individual in the eye of a hurricane of war across the galaxy. The blonde had yet to see who it was, but that individual was there and not a figment of his imagination. The Trade Federation was acting aggressively, and yet the Republic rarely batted an eyelash. The politicians seemed worse than ever, and if the news was correct, there were a lot of systems that were protesting the Republic's actions, or lack thereof. It was a tinderbox full of anger that just needed a spark to ignite it. "This galaxy is just burning with rage Kurama, I can feel it building up pressure slowly but steadily. The question is who is pulling the strings?" thought the blonde. Kurama's tails flicked back and forth in aggravation. "The question on my mind is what we're going to do about it and where we fit in. I have a feeling that the Force itself is playing no role in your destiny." "One person can't change the fate of the galaxy Kurama," replied Naruto. "You'll never know until you try," Naruto stated the ancient fox. "You just might find that flipping the right switch at the right time could tip the balance one way or the other." Core world space. The trip from Rinatasia to Coruscant was a quiet one, and Naruto divided most of his time between meditating and talking with Master Windu about his thoughts and visions of the future. Unlike Anakin Skywalker, the title of Chosen One had never been spoken to Naruto, and outside the Jedi High Council, no one knew. Grandmaster Yoda had warned against training Skywalker, and as the boy grew more and more powerful, the less Master Windu trusted the boy. Naruto on the other hand he trusted implicitly. There was a gut feeling that Mace had telling him they needed the whiskered blonde back in the fold. "Found Naruto Uzumaki, you have?" asked Yoda over the holographic display. Mace Windu nodded. "I believe it was the Force at work. This is no mere coincidence that I crossed paths with him again." Yoda nodded. "See, I do. Much training he will need." "Perhaps not," replied the dark-skinned master. "He has been training himself obviously. Naruto shines like a beacon in the Force." The diminutive master's ears perked up. "Interesting this is. The council, I will advise. May the Force be with you." "And you Master Yoda," replied Mace. Core Worlds, Coruscant Sector, Planet Coruscant, Galactic Senate Building. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine was sitting in his quarters when he suddenly felt a presence that was most unwelcome in his grand plan for the galaxy. "Naruto Uzumaki, you escaped my web but were cut off from the Force as a result. Now you are back blazing like a star in the light side." He grimaced in anger. "It's such a shame I'll have to snuff you out." Darth Sidious had been carefully grooming Anakin Skywalker for many years now, gently stroking the boy's ego and arrogance as a trusted friend, but Anakin was only 15 now. It would take a few more years for him to grow into his power. Naruto, though he was beyond the reach of the Sith Lord now. Perhaps I could stir a little jealousy in young Anakin and have him destroy Naruto for me. It will take a few years, but I believe it can be done. The future will follow my plan. Still, the force is clouded around Uzumaki. I'll have to manipulate things to keep him in check. There was still a mystery afoot to the Sith Lord though. I have to wonder about the Sith runes I had carved into Naruto's very flesh so long ago. I had foreseen him becoming the next Ixer-kun. He should have been drawn into the dark side by those runes alone. What went wrong? I will have to look into this personally. Perhaps with time and some careful planning I can turn him using those runes. Yesies. Uzumaki will join me or he will die. Naruto returned to the Grand Jedi Temple for the first time in what seemed like an eon to him. He was following Mace Windu through the Room of 8,000 Fountains, where he'd learned to clear his mind and meditate with Jiraiya. They also passed through the Jedi Temple Arboretum, which housed trees, flowers and ferns from 1,000 different worlds. It was refreshing for the blonde to feel the living force at work there. Naruto was admiring the local fauna, red. Lovely females, when Mace said, "You seem distracted, Naruto." The blonde smiled. It has been a long time since I've been able to admire the beauty of nature on this scale. Windu rolled his eyes and replied, "I believe that was your late master Jiraiya's euphemism." Naruto's blue eyes twinkled mischievously and he simply nodded. Jiraiya had always been a maverick and was very open-minded about certain things like enjoying the company of beautiful females. He felt that the Jedi could benefit and be better people by forming emotional attachments, and often got in hot water for it with the Grand Jedi Council as a result. Master Windu got a ghost of a smile, remembering the white-haired Jedi Master's antics he seemed to have passed down to young Uzumaki. Be mindful of your thoughts, Naruto. Naruto looked away from the shapely young woman he was admiring and said, "Yes, master." Jedi Council Chambers. When Mace Windu and the blonde stepped off of the elevator and entered the circular room, Naruto felt as if his life had come full circle as well. He saw Master Plo Koon, Coyote and Master Yoda among several others he wasn't familiar with. Master Windu took his seat and turned to Naruto with a nod. The blonde returned the gesture before bowing and said, "Masters of the council. I am honored that you are willing to see me once again." Yoda smiled and said, "A pleasure to see the light has returned your young eyes, Uzumaki. Much you have grown." Plo Koon nodded in agreement. "The council has reviewed your request to rejoin the Jedi Order as a Padawan learner. You will need to be tested before we can make a final decision." Master Coyote added, "The testing may seem severe, but we must be thorough. Do you understand?" Naruto replied, "I understand, masters, I am ready." "Good," said Yoda. "Before we begin, how feel you?" The whiskered blonde answered, "I feel like I've finally come home." His eyes crackled with chakra and he added, "I will give my all to pass the council's testing." "Interesting," said Coyote. "With the council's consent we shall begin." Jedi Temple base floor. Naruto soon found himself led to a chamber he did not recognize deep within the temple. He sat in the middle of the chamber in the low light and heard a booming voice echoing above him. "The High Council has determined that you are to undergo a trial of skill," said the voice. "There are 3 parts. They are physical, mental and combat challenges." A huge forest obstacle course with traps appeared before the blonde. It had flags placed all over it that Naruto had to collect. "Complete the obstacle course as quickly as you can," commanded the voice. "The test begins now." The whiskered blonde spent the next hour moving flat out, running, climbing, leaping, crossing heights, swimming and pushing his endurance to the maximum. On top of that he was escaping devilish traps and dodging remotes with laser bolts the whole way. Naruto had his lightsaber but stuck strictly to using his body and the force alone to complete the obstacle course. The physical challenges were exhausting, but Naruto's brutal training under Kurama carried him through. He completed the test in 64 minutes. Panting and sweating heavily, the blonde grabbed the last flag marker on the obstacle course. He immediately sat in the meditative position to regain his strength and said, "Done." If there was any sign that Naruto passed or failed, the young Rinatasian could not detect it. After meditating in silence for 10 minutes, he heard the voice say, "The mental challenges are next." The male's Abrak Jedi master he did not recognize appeared and said, "I will be administering this test. You will follow my instructions to the letter. Let us begin, Naruto Uzumaki." The blonde was soon undergoing an excruciatingly long 3-hour test of endurance involving levitation while orbiting rocks around him. The test came to a crescendo when one of the trees nearby fell over upon him, causing Naruto to lose his concentration and to hold the massive tree up using the force alone. Finally, the whiskered blonde was able to hurl the tree away from him with an enormous telekinetic shove. As Abrak said, you have 30 minutes to reflect upon your triumphs and failures in this test so far. Then he walked back into the darkness. Naruto relaxed his body once again to regain strength and reflected on the tests. I believe I passed the obstacle course. I really couldn't go any faster without injuring myself. The levitation nearly killed me though. When the tree came down I dropped all the rocks and fell to the ground. At least I was able to throw the tree off before it crushed me. The blonde was running on mental fumes at this point. Faster than Naruto could believe it, the commanding voice returned. The combat challenge begins now. The huge GT Temple Guardian came out of nowhere and roared, "Defend yourself." As he activated his yellow lightsaber and hit Naruto with a force push that sent the blonde tumbling into the trees. The Guardian chased Naruto into the brush, only to get knocked back writhing in pain by a Terazkasi punch to the groin. The man made a sound that only a fellow male could comprehend. Naruto finished the oversized Guardian with a scissor kick to the face that not only knocked the man's helmet off, it rendered him unconscious. 4 more Guardians appeared and one of them said, "Atul is down. That jerk hit him in the nuts. Get him." Naruto activated his orange lightsaber and ran down into the obstacle course, forcing the 4 temple guardians to angrily give chase. Finally. I'm in my own element. Thought the blonde as he engaged the first guardian. His eyes glowed blue with power as he took a lightsaber form that Mace Windu knew well. "Jio. Let's get wild," said the smiling blonde. The High GT Council was observing and they were more than a bit shocked at the Jio form. Naruto's heart was soaring with light rather than darkness. Truthfully, the blonde was enjoying himself immensely as he dismantled the temple guardians' defenses and knocked them into the various traps on the obstacles course using the force. One he beat unconscious by using a vicious combo of taijutsu punches and kicks. Then he was able to fight the remainder of them one-on-one as they escaped the traps. "Naruto is making a masterful display of using the terrain around him," said Master Plo Koon. "I agree," said Master Mundi. "Instead of facing all his foes at once, he is forcing them to face him on his own terms. Still, the use of Jio is worrisome." Master Windu. Mace Windu said, "It is a form of Jio, but not like Vapid. It seems to incorporate the Terazkasi martial art as well as others. I don't sense the dark side, but rather a strict determination and the thrill of combat. I must test him myself." The Oda looked on keeping his own counsel, while the remaining GT masters commented on Naruto's unorthodox and sometimes chaotic tactics. After the whiskered blonde finished knocking out the last temple guardian, Master Windu walked out of the darkness and said, "That saber form is based in Jio. What do you call it?" Naruto's eyes widened at the master's presence. "Things just got serious," thought the blonde. "It is called the QB or Nine Tails form. I learned it training by myself." Mace Windu activated his purple lightsaber and motioned for the 5 beat-up temple guardians to withdraw. He said, "Those 5 were Padawans dressed as temple guardians. You'll find my test a bit more severe." The blonde gulped and raised his orange lightsaber into the offensive stance. "I am ready, master." Mace Windu nodded and exploded into action. His blade moved so fast that Naruto thought it looked like a sphere of purple flame. The blonde was completely on the defensive the entire time, but was clever and cunning enough to use the surrounding trees, rocks and anything else to stave off Master Windu for a short while before he was utterly defeated. Naruto was kneeling and in a blade lock when he said, "I yield, master. I am too exhausted to continue." Windu smiled as they both deactivated their lightsabers and said, "You show wisdom knowing when it is time to quit, Naruto. Nicely done." Offering a hand to help the worn-out blonde up, Mei said, "I look forward to discussing the QP style with you in detail. It is most interesting. In the meantime, shower off and rest. You will be summoned by the council in the morning." Naruto nodded tiredly and replied, "Yes, master, thank you." GT Council Chambers. A debate had broken out among the masters as to how exactly Naruto should be placed. "He is skilled enough to become a GT Knight from what we've seen," said one master. "He should be given the full night trials. Young Uzumaki exceeded the requirements, but the full night trials?" asked Coyote Mundi. The Sarian GT master shook his head. "Even if he were to pass the night trials, he is not qualified to be a GT Knight yet. It would be a mistake to push him too far too fast. Besides, there is the matter of the Jio he knows. Clearly he has had another master." The Oda smiled and stated, "A mystery afoot there is, but I sense no darkness in Uzumaki. An experienced GT master he requires to gently unlock his secrets." Plo Koon agreed. He displayed great potential in the trial of skill, but even when he was reflecting, Naruto believed he could do better. "This display proves to me he has a good mindset to continue learning as a Padawan." "Perhaps we should ask Uzumaki himself what he thinks," replied another. "He may wish to face the other trials. To give a potential GT Knight a choice in their own placement would give them the idea that they are far more important than they are," said another master. "It would breed arrogance." The Oda nodded, agreed, "We are." Talk to Master Windu, he should. Yoda turned to Mace and said, great admiration and respect he has for you Master Windu. Mace Windu nodded and said, with the agreement of the council, I will talk to him in the morning then. Naruto's quarters. The whisker-marked blonde was meditating in a set of guest quarters the next morning when Mace Windu knocked on his door. Please enter, said Naruto from the cushion he was on. Good morning to you Naruto, said Mace. How are you feeling? I feel thoroughly humbled when it comes to dueling Master Windu, said the blonde with a twinkle in his eye. The Vapid form is not to be trifled with. Windu nodded. Your QB form has great potential though. How did you come up with it? Naruto sighed and heard Kurama say, you'd better come clean if you want to earn his trust Naruto. The blonde nodded to his furry partner mentally and said, Master Windu, if you have time then I will explain a little Rinatasian history to you so you will understand the QB form's origins. Seeing Windu nod and sit down, Naruto began. Nearly 4,000 years ago the Rinatasian expedition from Griswold landed on Rinatasia and found that there were 9 spirit beasts that maintained balance and harmony on that world. They came to worship them eventually and the 9 were called the Old Gods. Naruto explained for a couple of hours and answered Mace Windu's many questions. The veteran master rubbed his chin and said, so your master in the ways of the force is Kurama, who has also taught you about an inner force called chakra. This is fascinating. Having your friend Kurama sealed within you is almost like having a living holocron within, isn't it? The whiskered blonde grinned and replied, I guess you could look at it that way, but Kurama is a great friend and mentor as well. We discuss all kinds of topics, not just the force and chakra. Master Windu said, I believe this should be discussed with Master Yoda and the Jedi Council before we proceed Naruto. I personally consider you having Master Kurama sealed within you could be a huge advantage. Jedi Council chambers. Soon Master Mace Windu was discussing Naruto's unique situation with the High Jedi Council. So young Uzumaki and Master Kurama see themselves as a symbiosis, 2 halves of a greater whole, rather than having a true master and apprentice relationship. It is truly amazing as sensing one is sensing the other. He explained. I see no reason this would be a problem if we reinstate Naruto as a Padawan. Many wonders the galaxy has. Yoda said sagely. A surprise this is but not an unwelcome one. Jedi Master Plohun said, I'd recommend Jedi Knight Bolter Swan to be his master. It is past time she took an apprentice. She is from Kuwait and was a Padawan of the late Jedi Master Mikajid. Swan excels at the martial arts and she learned a strong lightsaber defense under my tutelage. She has never killed an opponent and routinely goes on peace missions. Bolter is graceful, skilled and acrobatic and I believe would complement young Uzumaki's skill set perfectly. Mace Windu wanted to face palm. She's also a young and very attractive human female and that's the last thing Naruto needs. This is all your fault Jiraiya he thought. Not knowing that Windu had a minor objection, the rest of the council looked at 2 other options but all soon agreed that Bolter Swan could teach Naruto to be a superb Jedi Knight. Naruto was sitting and waiting his turn to go into the council chamber when he saw a tall, lithe female walk by with straight black hair and a bob haircut. He smiled as he admired her shapely body, but she didn't appear to notice him. This was Bolter Swan. The young woman entered the round council chambers and bowed. I bid you greeting masters, how may I be of service? Yoda stood up and said, thank you for coming. Bolter Swan, confer upon you the title of Jedi Master, the council does. Swan's brown eyes bulged. What? Was her well-thought-out reply. Master Plo chuckled, Grandmaster Yoda and the Jedi Council have made the decision to promote you to the rank of Master Jedi. Well done. Suddenly feeling self-conscious, Swan said, I don't believe I'm ready to become a Master Jedi yet. You are, said Yoda full of confidence. An apprentice, we have chosen for you. Naruto was motioned in from out in the corridor and bowed before the council. He was about to greet the masters properly, but Yoda spoke before he could. Naruto Uzumaki, reinstated as a Padawan you are. A new master we have chosen for you. Naruto was hoping that Master Windu would be his new mentor, but Yoda motioned over to the pretty woman standing beside him. Master Bolter Swan this is. Your new Jedi Master, she shall be. He's too old. She's too young. Thought the pair. The diminutive Grandmaster had the tiniest look of mischief in his eye. Get to know each other, you should. Faster than you could say objection overruled, the new master and Padawan were swept out of the council chambers riding the elevator down to the base floor where they could talk. What just happened? They thought in tandem. Swan started the conversation and said, did you lose your previous master, Uzumaki? I lost my master Jiraiya 6 years ago and had to leave the order to recover from the wounds I received then, said Naruto. I just returned to the Jedi. I lost my master Mikajid at around the same time, replied Swan in sympathy. It's hard isn't it? The blonde nodded. It took a few years, but Master Jiraiya would want me to look forward instead of back. It took me a long time to make peace with it as well, she said. Perhaps that's why Master Yoda put us together. I hope we get along well, Master Swan," said Naruto. She smiled and said, "As do I, my apprentice." Sparring room. Over the next few days, the master and Padawan got to know each other in baby steps. Swan had him at the Jedi library a lot to review the precepts of the Jedi Order and other academic matters. Likewise, she was studying up on how a Master Jedi was to handle a Padawan learner in the old texts as she had never taught before. Naruto was getting bored and said, "My joints are getting stiff. I need to move around." Bolter was a little restless herself and said, "Let's go to the sparring room and see what you can do, Naruto." As they came out to the mats, Swan expected the blonde to draw his lightsaber, but instead he went into an advanced Terazkasi counter stance. She raised an eyebrow and asked, "You know Terazkasi?" At Naruto's nod she said, "Excellent, so do I. Show me what you can do and don't hold back." That was a mistake. Wham bash crunch smack yeech. Thud bang clang oh. Crack. Before long the whole sparring hall had stopped doing what they were supposed to be doing and were observing the most brutal Terazkasi beatdown ever seen inside the halls of the Grand Jedi Temple. "Oh, it's on now, you brat." Slap bam crumple slam bunk whap oof. Boom ouch, my hand. Naruto was lying in the floor flat on his face and rasped out huffing and puffing, "Okay, concede. Yowin master. This woman is dangerous." Master Swan was holding her throbbing right hand where she'd landed a 6-hit combo to Naruto's head and was sitting on her rear. "What is his head made of? Armor plate." "Yowded well." She panted out tiredly. "Oh ho ho ho. Bonding already, I see," said Master Yoda as he appeared from nowhere. "Your prowess, most impressive." Ho 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 ho. The healers weren't nearly as amused as Master Yoda. Infirmary. "And furthermore, the sparring room is for sparring, not death matches," screeched an angry Jedi doctor before she stormed away. Naruto was bruised all over, but healing rapidly. "It seems you have the edge in speed, agility and skill, Master Swan." Swan had her hand wrapped in a bandage around her head. She replied, "You hit harder, are stronger and have more durability, Naruto. Perhaps we should both hold back a bit from now on." "I totally agree," said Naruto. "We should avoid beating each other senseless." Master Plo Koon came in and said, "I watched a holographic display of your Terazkasi duel. My respect for the martial art has risen a great deal. I trust you two are getting along?" he asked. "Ah, we get along well," replied Naruto. "We were sparring went a little overboard." "There are no problems," Swan added. "We both have much to learn, Master Plo." Plo nodded. "That is good to hear. I was afraid a rift had developed between you, but obviously that's not the case." Seeing several wide-eyed children looking in from the hallway, Bolter asked, "What's with all of the younglings?" Master Plo Koon beat his head and said, "They all have become enamored with Terazkasi, of course." Bolter Swan sweat dropped. "But of course." Grand Jedi Temple, hangar level. 2 months later, Naruto was quietly working on the T6 shuttle which he and Master Swan were to use for their ambassadorial duties. Their first mission together was coming up and the blonde Padawan wanted to make sure nothing was amiss. He was on top of the wing tinkering with the port ion engine when he saw a bearded Jedi master and his Padawan come trotting up. Naruto heard the master say, "Bolter Swan. It's been some time since we crossed paths." Swan replied, "Obi-Wan Kenobi. It is good to see you are doing well." Naruto was only half listening as he heard them exchange introductions with Kenobi's Padawan, Anakin Skywalker. The blonde was too engrossed in his engine work to give it much thought. Bolter called, "Naruto, I'm catching up with a friend of mine. His Padawan is going to help you with that engine. His name is Anakin." "That's fine," called Naruto. "Come on up if you want, Anakin." "Hello," said Anakin from over Naruto's shoulder. "I'm Anakin Skywalker." Naruto glanced back and saw a tall, lanky 15-year-old with dusty blonde hair. Naruto was covered in soot and said, "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, pleased to meet you, you know ion engines." Anakin nodded and Naruto said, "Come on over then. Maybe you can see why this thing is having so much trouble starting up." The 15-year-old was soon covered in soot as well by the time they found a faulty relay panel. Naruto cheered. "Finally. Let's fire this beast up and see how she runs." It wasn't long before the two were closing up the engine panels having completed a successful repair job. Naruto thanked Anakin and said, "You really know your way around a ship, I bet you like to pilot too." Anakin looked surprised. "How did you know?" "Your eyes," replied the whiskered blonde. "They are sharp, keen and predatory. Ever flown a fighter?" "I flew a Naboo fighter against the Trade Federation," replied Anakin proudly. "It was a real battle." Naruto nodded. "The Trade Federation are a bunch of slime devils. I had to fight them for weeks over Renatasia. I thought the onslaught would never end." "So you were a fighter pilot?" asked Skywalker. "Yeah. I was a flight leader in a squadron of Delta 7 interceptors. They are very lightly armed but fast and maneuverable as hell," said the older Padawan. You can really burn the sky in them. You'd like the mannequin. There is nothing like pushing the envelope as far as it will go. Anakin's eyes widened as they talked about space combat. In spite of his victory at Naboo, he realized Naruto was a veteran by comparison. When Obi-Wan and Baltar came back, they found the two Padawans chattering away about fighters and pod racing as they ran the final system checks on the T6 shuttle. Obi-Wan smiled and said, "It sounds like they are having a lively conversation. It's rare for Anakin to make friends with other Padawans." "Why is that?" asked Baltar. "Anakin is very advanced for his age," explained Kenobi. "He tends to come off a bit arrogant sometimes." Swan shrugged. "I doubt it bothers Naruto in the slightest. I believe he could befriend just about anyone." Jedi Council Chambers. Jedi Master Baltar Swan and her Padawan Naruto Uzumaki were standing before the Jedi Council to receive their first mission together. Governor Wilhef Tarkin of planet Iriadu has requested an investigation of pirates interfering with Lamide ore shipments from the Outer Rim to the core worlds of the Republic, explained Master Mace Windu. Chancellor Palpatine has personally requested that the Jedi investigate these incidents because of the impact it's having on the transparent steel industry. It's a complicated situation that needs to be unraveled quickly. Master Kai Adimundi added, "The Force is very clouded on this issue, so be on your guard. May the Force be with you." The whiskered blonde was frowning as they left the council chambers. "What is bothering you, Naruto?" asked Baltar. "You seem tense." "I don't like this at all, Master," replied Naruto. "Something dark is waiting for us on Iriadu. I can feel it." She grinned, "Are you sure it's not just nerves? This is our first mission together, you know." Naruto smiled back grimly. "I guess we're about to find out, aren't we?" Master Swan was aboard her T6 shuttle with her Padawan Naruto Uzumaki in hyperspace when they received a transmission from the Jedi High Council. It was none other than Grandmaster Yoda. "Changed, the situation has. To Iriadu City you must go. Personally targeted, Governor Wilhef Tarkin is." Naruto's master beeped an eyebrow. "I understood we were investigating pirate activity, Master." Master Plo Koon appeared in the hologram. "It seems these particular pirates are specifically after Wilhef Tarkin because of his hardline stance against piracy. He was responsible for ending the Greater Siswena raids 20 years ago as part of the anti-pirate task force in the region, and they want revenge." Jedi Master Quinlan Vos discovered this but will not be able to help with Governor Tarkin personally. Master Vos indicated that 3 or more assassins have been sent to kill the governor. "Your new mandate is to protect Governor Wilhef Tarkin at his estate in Iriadu City. Do your best to neutralize these assassins." "I understand, Master, but do we have any information on these assassins?" asked Baltar. "We believe they are the source of the dark side of the Force that has been clouding this issue," replied Plo Koon. "Governor Tarkin's bodyguards cannot handle it alone." "We will do our best," stated Baltar. "May the Force be with you," said Yoda as the transmission ended. Naruto sighed. "First we are out to stop piracy. Now we are guarding a politician from the sins of his past." Master Swan shook her head. "Well, I admit Wilhef Tarkin's methods were vile. It did shut down major piracy in the area for nearly 20 years. I don't know if the end justifies the means, Master," replied Naruto. "Governor Tarkin seems to have a penchant for maintaining order through fear alone. It sounds like he would grow up to be a fine dictator someday to me." Baltar smiled at her Padawan's sarcasm but said seriously, "It's not our place to judge the man, Naruto. The dark side is involved and we are here to safeguard others. The council would not have sent us here if there wasn't a real threat. Even if we are merely a deterrent that drives them off, we have done our duty." "I understand, Master Swan, but I still don't like it," he said. "Trust in the Jedi Council's judgment," she replied. "For what it's worth, I don't like it either. It's elusive, but I feel like someone else is pulling the strings." The blonde nodded. "At least we are on the same page, Master." Planet Iriadu, planetary capital Iriadu City, Tarkin family compound. Iriadu's governor Wilhef Tarkin was rather annoyed that the Jedi Knights were on their way. He had only dealt with the Jedi Order once before in his life, and while they did their job, he didn't understand why Chancellor Palpatine wanted them there on Iriadu to begin with. "I assure you that the Iriadu security forces are quite competent, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine," he had said. "Why would I want to bring the Jedi Order into the picture?" Palpatine smiled and replied, "I would rather you be safe than sorry, Governor. I consider you one of my few friends in political circles, so please humor me in this matter. The Jedi have done great service to the Republic, and it was their intervention that saved my homeworld of Naboo from the clutches of tyranny at the hands of the Trade Federation. The people after you will probably leave once they realize the Jedi Order is involved." "So that's how it is," thought Tarkin as he saw the 2 Jedi Knights arrive at the Tarkin family compound from his window. They lowered their monk-like robes and appeared quite young to Tarkin. "I do hope they are competent," he thought dourly. A secretary showed the two GD into Governor Tarkin's office and he said, "I am Governor Wilhef Tarkin of Iriadu. I trust you two GD will do your best to stay out of sight and out of mind. Several socialites will be here this weekend to celebrate my re-election and I don't want my guests disturbed." Bolter resisted the urge to sigh. "I am GD Master Bolter Swan and this and my apprentice Naruto Uzumaki. We will do our best to remain inconspicuous as we guard your person. I'll have you know that you two are not needed here," said Wilhef. "I have my own security guards." The two GD bowed in respect and Master Swan said gravely, "That remains to be seen, Governor Tarkin." As the two GD walked the grounds with the head of security, they noticed two Iriadu wildcats acting like family pets. Each was dark blue and over 2 meters in length. "Aren't those animals feral?" asked Master Swan. "I can't believe they are tame enough to be loose around the pedestrians here." The security guard chuckled. "They have behavioral modification biochips implanted in them. They are as docile as a house pet. It seems wrong for such magnificent creatures to have their will suppressed just for the amusement of others," replied Naruto. "Would you rather be eaten by one GD?" asked a guard sarcastically. Master Swan shook her head at her apprentice, realizing further argument would be pointless. The blonde just sighed. The next day Naruto was on guard duty inside the Tarkin family compound and found it to be as boring as watching paint dry. The architecture of the building was primarily gray stone and seemed to be a pale copy of the Coruscant styles. "It's sad when someone my age is bored enough to be critiquing architecture," he thought to no one in particular. That was when Naruto sensed something at the opposite end of the Tarkin compound. It was 3 somethings to be precise. "Master," he called telepathically. "I'm already after them," replied Bolter. "Remain where you are." Naruto sensed something above him just in time to activate his blade as a red lightsaber came crashing down upon his orange one. Reacting in a blur, the blonde sent his assailant flying with a force-enhanced shove. The person tumbled to a stop at the end of the stone platform and unleashed a torrent of force lightning which Naruto deflected with his saber. That's when the young Rinatasian realized his attacker was a she. A gorgeous Lethan Twi'lek girl revealed herself by shedding her black outer robes and charged the blonde hard with her blade flashing crimson. The whiskered blonde met the Twi'lek head-on and knocked her back, forcing the girl to fall into a defensive stance. Then Naruto took his offensive QB saber form and pummeled her defenses before force pushing her down a flight of stone steps. He was about to leap down after her but sensed it was a trap. She smiled up at him brilliantly as she stood back up and her eyes blazed yellow. She said in a seductive voice, "Come Naruto, your destiny lies with me. I was sent to retrieve you, not to kill you." He felt himself drawn to her amazing dancer's body and she added, "Wouldn't it be wonderful to be free of the GD code and run wild? I want to grant you freedom, not tame you Naruto." Naruto growled, "Just who are you, woman? How do you know me?" as he pointed his orange blade down at her. Her eyes blazed and she grinned impishly at him again. "I'm Shire Atlee. We met years ago on Japril. Don't you remember me? We talked about you joining the dark side, but then you got loose and ran away somehow." That's when he remembered her face, her mischievous smirk and telling him the dark side was his salvation. Naruto's face contorted in anger and he hissed, "You." Her smile turned manic. "So you do remember I tried to save you back then, you know. As I said, your destiny lies with me." They both heard others approaching and Shire said, "We will continue this conversation at another time." Then she gracefully vaulted the stone rail behind her and disappeared. Naruto took a calming breath and deactivated his orange lightsaber before turning back to Master Swan, who skidded to a halt in front of him. "What happened?" asked Bolter. "You could have pursued her." "Her mission was to capture me," said Naruto. "I'm not going to follow her into a trap. Besides, I know who she is." Master Swan raised an eyebrow and asked, "Who?" "She said her name was Shire Atlee," replied the blonde Padawan. "She gave you her name?" asked the GD Master. "That seems odd, did you know her before?" Naruto's eyes turned hard as steel. "I would never forget the face and smile of the one that carved these whisker mark scars onto my face with a lightsaber." Later, Master Swan and Naruto were both speaking to the GD Council member Kyodimundi regarding their encounter earlier that evening. Shire Atlee was born on the Twi'lek homeworld of Rylith and attended the Alma's GD Academy, said the Sarian GD Master. She and her master Rena Fen disappeared on a training mission to Ilium when Shire was 9. Our records show she was very smart and gifted in the Force. She and her master are missing and presumed dead. An image of Shire Atlee appeared showing her as a very cute Twi'lek youngling with red skin standing with her blue pigmented Russian Twi'lek master. "You say you crossed paths with her there on Iriadu?" he asked. "Yes, master," replied Naruto. "As I said, she has fallen to the dark side and was on Japril when I was tortured 6 years ago." Mundi tilted his head to the side and asked, "Was there any sign of her master Rena Fen?" "We sensed the presence of 3 others, but they fled before I encountered them." explained Swan. Naruto clashed with Atli but did not pursue her, suspecting a trap. She claimed that it was her duty to capture him alive and turn him to the dark side. The Sarian master nodded. This is unexpected. The council will look into this occurrence. May the force be with you. Naruto frowned. So we are to stay and guard Governor Tarkin. It seems that the threat against him has diminished greatly without Atli. Master Swan patted her apprentice's shoulder. That's correct, Naruto. Atli was the major threat, but she has departed. There are still the 3 others, though I feel they are just a distraction. They need to be dealt with before we can leave. The blonde nodded and said, something occurred to me, master. I do not believe Governor Tarkin is the real target. Swan nodded and said, I have the same feeling. We need to figure out who the real target is, and quickly. Iriadu City Spaceport, IT-1250 Transport Gemini. Shire Atli came aboard Master Rena Fenn's ship, the IT-1250 Transport Gemini, and sensed Rena was aboard. The younger female said in a sing-song voice, Master, I'm home. Rena Fenn looked up at her protege and said, so you are Shire. Where are the other 3? They are still hunting the target, master, replied the Lethan Twi'lek. I found a much greater prize to capture, but now is not the time. Shire sounded positively gleeful. Fenn growled and said, you abandoned your duty to kill a target and came trotting back here smiling, Shire. I may tolerate your antics, but Master Tyrannus will not. We both know this is a feint to get Wilf Tarkin to join us, master, said the younger Twi'lek. Lord Tyrannus would not have sent those 3 inexperienced acolytes to do the job otherwise. Rena regarded Shire for a moment and replied, you grow more insightful, my apprentice, good. Still, you should not have left your post without reason. But I did have reason, master, said Atli. And what reason is that? Asked Fenn. It had better be something good, she added sternly. Shire smiled brightly. Oh, it's better than good. I found Naruto Uzumaki after all these years. He has somehow managed to overcome the runes and is extremely powerful in the light side of the force. Though I didn't fight him with everything I had, he was a match for me and uses Gyro. I believe I can seduce him to the dark side given time and a bit of effort. The master regarded her apprentice and asked, are you sure you don't want to just seduce him in general? Atli said, well, the idea does have me hot. He's grown up to be quite a looker. Rena laughed. So the truth comes out. Well, it was said his destiny was intertwined with mine. Pouted Shire. I was sad when I thought he died. Fenn replied, I would be interested in knowing what transpired between his disappearance and now. I will contact Lord Tyrannus and see what he wants us to do. But master, said the younger Twi'lek. The master grinned. Your lust for your newest toy can wait. Let's see what happens to the other 3 when they go up against him. If he's powerful enough to be a threat to you, then young Uzumaki will crush them. So you mean to sacrifice them? Asked Shire with a gleam in her eye. Rena nodded. Either we'll be rid of some dead weight or your boyfriend isn't worthy of your affections. Either way we win. Atli rolled her blue eyes. Your concern for my love life touches me, master. I want only the best for you, Shire. You're like a daughter to me, said Fenn with smirk. Tarkin family compound. The next day the 2 Jedi were in Governor Tarkin's office. And so they got away, said Tarkin derisively. I have to say I'm not very impressed with the methods of the Jedi Order. The master was off jazzing ghosts and the apprentice let his quarry escape. Naruto was steamed but maintained his composure. And in the meantime your elite security forces were milling around not detecting the 4 assailants at all. Their target would be dead if left to your guards, Governor. Now it was Tarkin's turn to be angry. He narrowed his eyes. This room is very well armored, boy. I am quite safe. But the actual target, your son Garrosh Tarkin, isn't, said Master Swan. Wilhel's eyes widened as she pulled out a holographic projection of the Tarkin compound. The 3 ghosts I was pursuing were here, here and here. Bolter pointed out. Note they all fled in the furthest directions they could from the point of your son's room. The real threat, the one Naruto intercepted, was headed directly towards your son Garrosh's room. What better way to hurt you than to murder your only heir, Governor? Face it, while you sat safely in your armored box, he would have been slaughtered. Governor Tarkin was shocked. The empirical evidence was solid, they were after his son. The rarely shaken governor said, I see now. It seems I underestimated you, Jedi. What would you suggest we do? I guess that's as close as we're going to get to an apology from this creep, thought Naruto. Though she had similar sentiments, Master Swan replied, be mindful of your thoughts, my apprentice. Yes, master, answered the blonde. Forum. That evening, Governor Tarkin's re-election party was going full swing, and many of Iriadu's wealthiest and most powerful were there to congratulate him. Tarkin's wife Alasa and son Garrosh were there in the open against Master Swan's advice, because they had to keep up appearances with the public. Naruto and Bolter were in the shadows moving about the compound in wait for the 3 dark acolytes to return. They both sensed Shire Atli's departure early that evening. Master Swan signaled Naruto to be prepared and left the ballroom to intercept the assailants head-on. Naruto went to the head of security and said, "They are on the move. Tell your people to be prepared for anything." The head of security quietly informed the governor and set things into motion. The guards were prepared for combat. That was when two security guards entered the ballroom and opened fire on the Tarkin family with blasters, and Naruto exploded into action. East entrance. At the same time, Master Swan caught two of the assassins when they tried to sneak into the east side of the Tarkin compound. The pair was completely taken off guard, and she leveled one of them with Terra's Kasi before either could react. The first one's head bounced off a stone wall by the time the second one activated his red lightsaber. He saw a ghost of a smile flicker across Swan's pretty face, and she said, "I don't suppose you'll consider surrender before you end up knocked out like your friend here." He hissed and charged the Jedi Master before being parried by her green lightsaber. She said, "I thought as much." The acolyte took the offensive and lashed out angrily at Swan, but she flowed around his attacks like water and kept deflecting his strikes away from her easily. Then she started brutally pummeling him with her martial arts. The acolyte was no match for the Master Jedi and soon joined his friend in blissful unconsciousness. Ballroom. Meanwhile, the whiskered blonde moved in a blur as he interposed himself between the guests and the two attackers. He ignited his orange lightsaber and deflected the blaster bolts back at the guard to his right, and the guard was killed by his own blaster fire in an instant. Governor Tarkin and his guests found themselves dazzled by the seeming shield of orange fire, protecting them from deadly blaster bolts. Then Naruto shot forward and cut the barrel off the blaster of the left guard, who sprang back and ignited a red lightsaber before withdrawing into the front atrium. "Come to me, Jedi," growled the acolyte. Naruto walked out into the atrium slowly, so the real security guards had time to corral the guests to ensure that they wouldn't be injured. "Where's Atli?" asked Naruto to distract the man. "She and Fen ran like cowards," said the Darksider. "I guess that means more glory for me." The whiskered blonde saw the last of the onlookers were at a safe distance and exclaimed, "Let's get wild," as he slid into the offensive QP stance and attacked. To the dark acolyte, it was as if the mouth of hell opened up as orange lightsaber strikes cut his defenses to ribbons. Unlike Shire Atli, the man's skill with the lightsaber was no match for Naruto's, and when he tried to parry the blonde, he was simply blown away. When he tried to take the offensive, the acolyte found he was losing ground too quickly to compensate. Then the acolyte tried to counter the Padawan's offensive with an overhead slash and was left wide open to a decapitating strike that instantly took his life. Naruto quietly deactivated his orange lightsaber, sensing the man had already joined the force. That was when someone in the crowd started clapping, and soon all of the guests were applauding, including Tarkin. Naruto reached out through the force to his master and sensed she was unharmed. "It appears that they viewed this duel as some sort of sideshow, master," he said through the force. Swan replied, "Just try to weather it and be gracious, Naruto. It is for the best." Tarkin family compound. Days later, Governor Wilhef Tarkin found himself inordinately pleased with his situation. Two of the attackers were in custody awaiting execution, and the other two, including a traitor in his ranks, were dead. The last two fled the system with their tails between their legs. According to the captives, he wanted to reward the two Jedi for their outstanding service to the Iriadu government, but once they all agreed that the Jedi's mandate was completed, the pair of knights quickly left the Siswena sector for their next assignment. Now he was talking to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine via holographic display. "I can't tell you how pleased I am to hear the Tarkin family is safe and well," said Palpatine. "The Jedi are truly extraordinary. I never dreamed that it was actually your precious son being targeted." "Nor was I," replied Wilhef Tarkin. "I must thank you again for sending them on my family's behalf, Chancellor Palpatine." Darth Sidious thought to himself, "It's just another step toward cementing your loyalty to me, Wilhef Tarkin." Siswena sector, IT 1250 transport Gemini. Rena Fen was speaking to her master Darth Tyrannus via holographic display. Count Dooku said, "You are correct, of course, Rena. This was all a test to see where Tarkin's loyalty truly lies. Losing those three acolytes was of little to no consequence." On the other hand, young Uzumaki, his resurfacing and strength in the light side is interesting news. "I honestly thought he was dead, or at least cut off from the force for good. I will look into this in more detail." Darushan Twi'lek agreed. "Uzumaki moves around like a shadow in the force. I wonder if it has something to do with the runes. His master Bolter Swan is easier to track though. They've already left the Siswena sector." Tyrannus nodded. "It will be interesting to see what he has been up to. I want you and your apprentice to head for Antor 4 to check the state of their defenses. I have a future interest in that place." "My apprentice and I will head there straight away, my master," said Fen with a bow. "If there are weaknesses, we will find them." "Excellent, I look forward to your report," replied the Sith Lord as he faded out. Rena looked over at Shire and said, "Eavesdropping as usual, I see. laying a course for Enter 4. We have work to do. GD Ambassadorial T6 Shuttle. The GD Council on Coruscant was speaking with Master Swan and Naruto about their mission. So it would seem Master Rina Fen is apparently alive as well, said Master Mace Windu. This could be more serious than we originally thought. Yes Master, the one which Naruto killed said as much. Replied Bolter. The two I captured weren't available for us to question. The Ariadu authorities seized them, and Governor Wilhef Tarkin already had them scheduled for execution. We had no say in the matter. Respect planetary judicial authority, we must. Said Master Yoda. He sighed. Works against us sometimes. Ayadimundi asked, what about the other one with a blaster? Was he deeply involved? The investigators say he was a dissatisfied security guard that was a hired gun. Answered Naruto. Unfortunately they would not divulge more other than that. It has been assumed the 3 Acolyte second attempt was enabled by his help as the place was locked down very tightly. You believe there is more to it Padawan Uzumaki? Stated Mace Windu. Naruto nodded and said, I feel there is much unanswered Master. Had Fen and Atli truly wanted to eliminate Garrosh Tarkin, they wouldn't have left without making an effort. The 3 acolytes that came after us were sacrificed for some reason, and due to the fact they are being executed, we may never know what that reason is. That is assuming they even know. Replied Master Windu. Finding the truth probably will require capturing Rina Fen. Grandmaster Yoda said, done well, both of you have. Returned to Coruscant. Master Swan and Naruto both bowed and Mace Windu said, may the force be with you. Character biographies. Naruto Uzumaki, Jedi Padawan. Let's get wild. Race. Human, Renatasian. Gender. Male. Eyes. Blue. Skin. Light. Hair. Blonde. Naruto was born to Renatasian diplomats Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki in 44 BBY. They were friends of Jedi Master Mace Windu and were in a speeder accident that took their lives in 43 BBY. Master Windu took the orphan Naruto to the Jedi Temple where he grew up to be very gifted in the Force. The Jedi High Council, secretly, considered him to be the prophesied chosen one who would bring balance to the Force. At the age of 10 he was taken as the Padawan of Jedi Master Jiraiya and learned under his new master until age 12 when on a mission to the Japral system that cost Jiraiya his life. Naruto was tortured and scarred with Sith magics on Japral and escaped his captors by awakening his dormant chakra long enough to run away. Being wounded both spiritually and physically, it appeared that Naruto was cut off from the light side of the Force and he voluntarily left the Jedi Order. He then went to his parents' homeworld of Renatasia to recover from his physical and mental wounds. At that point, the chakra spirit beast Kurama contacted him and purged the Sith magics from the boy's body. Then Naruto learned about the inner force of chakra and the outer force of the midichlorians he already was familiar with. With Kurama's tutelage he later developed the QB form of the Gyro lightsaber form. When Naruto was 15 he discovered he had a natural knack for flying and became known as an excellent civilian stunt pilot. He received a volunteer's military pilot license at 16 and was put on active duty at the age of 18 when an incident broke out between the Trade Federation and the Rentasian government that lasted 6 weeks. During this short but violent conflict, Naruto proved his worth several times over as an ace fighter pilot. When the Jedi Order intervened on behalf of the Renatasians and Naruto once again crossed paths with Mace Windu and returned to the Jedi Order as a Padawan. Shire Atli, Dark Side Acolyte. Reach out for the darkness because the light will not save you. Race. Twi'lek, Lethan. Gender. Female. Eyes. Blue normally, yellow when using dark side abilities. Skin. Red. Shire was born on Ryloth in 43 BBY to unknown parents of the Atli clan and was separated from them as an infant when it was found she was Force sensitive. She attended the Jedi Academy on Almaz and was considered exceptionally bright. Shire became the Padawan to the Russian Twi'lek Jedi Master Rina Fen at the tender age of 8. A year later both master and apprentice vanished while on a routine mission. When Shire reappeared in 32 BBY she had fallen to the dark side and was considered a dark acolyte. She was among those that tortured Jedi Padawan Naruto Uzumaki on planet Japral and tried to convince him to join the dark side. Shire appeared again on planet Ariadu in 26 BBY with a mission of eliminating Garrosh Tarkin at the behest of her master Rina Fen and Darth Tyrannus. Upon encountering Naruto Uzumaki once more, she attempted to bring him to the dark side of the Force once again, but withdrew. Jedi Master Bolter Swan and her Padawan Naruto Uzumaki were answering a distress signal from planet Subterral, which was a mining world in the Outer Rim. The locals were many varied species, but most of the laborers were clones called shovel-handed miners. The Subterral government needed a delivery of vaccine from planet Camino to solve problems the miners were having, and the two Jedi made several trips hauling loads of vaccine between the two worlds. Their emergency job done, the two Jedi landed on Kamino in their T6 shuttle in hopes of taking a break before heading back to the core worlds. Beyond Outer Rim, planet Kamino, Topoka City. Naruto and his master were treated well by their Kaminin hosts, and both Jedi were puzzled when a Kaminin named Tonwi came to visit them. She said to Bolter, "Master Jedi, the Prime Minister Lama Su is expecting you." "We're expected?" asked Master Swan. "But of course," replied Tonwi. "He is anxious to meet you. After all these years, we were beginning to think you weren't coming." Naruto and Swan were both puzzled when they found out a clone army was being grown for the Republic and were even more confused when they found out the late Jedi Master Sifo Dyas had ordered them in the name of the Galactic Republic. As confused as they were, the Jedi pair inspected the clone facilities and couldn't help but be both awed and impressed. Naruto looked at a fully formed clone that was dead lying on a table. Judging by the Kaminins around the stand and their tools around the body, they were performing an autopsy on the clone. "What happened here?" asked the blonde. "As embarrassing as it is, that particular clone was defective and had to be terminated," explained Lama Su. "How was it defective?" asked Master Swan. Tonwi pointed to the wall at a chart showing the defective clone's body. "This clone's behavioral modification chip was faulty and it turned upon us. The other clones terminated it however, so as you can see they are obedient without question." Bolter's brown eyes widened. "Behavioral modification chips are forbidden in sentient beings within the Republic." Tonwi smiled gently. "But we are outside of Republic space, Master Jedi. Your own Master Sifo Dyas ordered them installed to safeguard against the betrayal of rogue Jedi." Naruto and Bolter glanced at each other. Naruto said, "Master Sifo Dyas was mistaken. Can the biochips be removed? I fear they could be hacked or worse." Sifo Dyas did not understand these things well. Lama Su sighed. "To remove them would destroy the existing clones and would cause a prohibitive loss of time and money." "Can future clones be produced without these chips installed?" asked Master Swan. "The Republic will accept the initial batches of 50,000 with chips if this can be done." Perking up, Lama Su said, "Well, the customer is always right as they say. That we can do. It will also save expenses in the long run, as behavioral modification chips are quite expensive to install. There will need to be some waivers signed of Curson legal fees." Master Swan smiled and replied, "The legal fees are not an issue. With the money saved on the biochips not being installed, I'm sure the losses will be recouped in no time. This will only be seen as a fine-tuning rather than a moral matter to the Republican Senate." "I see we understand each other," said Lama Su amiably. "The biochips come from an outside source, Master Swan. What do you want done with the excess? Can you recycle them into useful materials?" asked Naruto. "Of course we can," replied Tonwi. "We still have millions of them though." "Then break the biochips down into something of use," said Naruto. "We will contact their manufacturer to cancel future production. That contract is an entirely separate issue, so simply dispose of them as they come in." "In that case let us proceed with the paperwork after we complete the inspection," replied Lama Su. It took hours to get everything discreetly signed over, but once the work was done, Naruto and Bolter reported into the Jedi Council without further delay. They had no idea that they had defused a ticking bomb planted by the Sith Lord Darth Sidious that might just change the future of the galaxy. Time skip. Year 23 BBY. Core Worlds, Planet Coruscant, Galactic Senate District, Senator Amidala's penthouse. Senator Padme Amidala of Naboo was assessing her situation. She'd been a senator for 4 years now and was facing a crisis. The separatist movement started by Count Dooku was a threat to the Republic and Padme had been very vocal about it. She'd already had one attempt on her life as a senator and now was getting threats of another. The question was who was behind the threats. The Trade Federation came to mind, but they were part of the separatist movement and weren't involved directly in Senate politics anymore. Senator Amidala spoke to Chancellor Palpatine earlier that day about it and the Supreme Chancellor was alarmed. Flashback. Sheev Palpatine said to Padme, "My lady, for you to be exposed to such dangers is unthinkable to me. I feel that you've been put in danger for being on the Loyalist Committee. Master Yoda and the Jedi Council have long been friends of mine. Let me call upon them. I'm sure with their considerable wisdom they can solve this problem. Let us seek their expertise on the matter. After losing Master Qui-Gon on Naboo, I doubt the Jedi would want to touch an issue involving me," replied Padme. "Qui-Gon Jinn was a hero that died for what he believed in," stated the Supreme Chancellor. "I'm sure he wouldn't hesitate to help you if he were here." Senator Amidala was torn on the matter. "What about our own security forces?" "My lady, this is the sort of battle that we of the Senate simply cannot fight in," implored Palpatine. "Let the Jedi Knights fight in their own arena. I assure you that if anyone can solve this mystery it is them." Flashback end. Now the Jedi were involved and Padme hoped it could all be resolved peacefully. Jedi Grand Temple. It had been a year since Naruto and Master Swan visited Kamino. The 21-year-old blonde had passed his trials and was now a full GD Knight. He was walking together with his master discussing their next mission. "So in essence we are babysitting yet another politician with a price on their head," said the blonde. "She's pulled magical political strings and here we are. This is the reason I distrust politicians of all kinds." Master Bolter Swan shook her head and grinned at Naruto's ranting. "You are wrong on several points, my apprentice. First of all, you will be babysitting Senator Padme Amidala while I go investigate who is after her." She chortled at the look of horror on Naruto's face at his guard duty assignment. "Secondly, there is no magic as these political strings. The senator is close to the Supreme Chancellor who is close to the GD Council. Lastly, there are a myriad of reasons not to trust politicians. Open up your imagination to the possibilities. You still have much to learn, Naruto." The blonde cried, "Please tell me we can switch jobs. Let's make a wager on it." Bolter smiled wickedly and said, "Not a chance. I've never seen anyone win a bet against you. Besides, you are more than capable of handling this alone. On an unconnected note, I'm very proud of you, Naruto. You are turning out to be a splendid GD Knight." Senator Amidala's penthouse. The master and apprentice arrived at the Naboo senator's residence and were welcomed by her head of security, Captain Grigor Tifo, and a handmaiden named Verse. The handmaidens Cord and Dormai were also there attending to the senator. Captain Tifo said, "Welcome, Master GD. I'm Grigor Tifo, the captain of Senator Amidala's security. My lady has received some serious death threats and we all hope you can deal with this issue quickly." The two GD lowered their hoods and Bolter replied, "It is our pleasure to make your acquaintance, Captain Tifo. I'm GD Master Bolter Swan and this is my apprentice, GD Knight Naruto Uzumaki. We will do everything in our power to find out who is behind this and stop them." Padme came out of her room and saw the two GD. "They look so young," she thought. "I was expecting someone older like Master Qui-Gon. I bid you greetings," Padme said cordially. "I am Senator Padme Amidala of the Chamel sector." The two GD bowed in respect before continuing. Bolter said, "Please tell us about the nature of these threats, Senator Amidala. I understand your situation. My apprentice Naruto will be guarding you, Lady Senator," explained Master Swan. "In the meantime I will be investigating the threats to your person. I sense this issue will be resolved very quickly." At that point a high-penetration blaster bolt shot through the transparisteel window aimed at the back of Padme's head. The two GD moved as one with such speed that Padme was in the floor with Naruto atop her, while Master Swan deflected blaster rifle bolts out of the penthouse and back towards the shooter. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started and Bolter deactivated her lightsaber. "Right," said Master Swan. "I'll be off then. Naruto, help the senator and her party to safety. And so help me, if you start motorboating Senator Amidala like you did the Queen of Alderaan." "Oh, you're no fun, Master," thought Naruto with a mental giggle. Hearing a mental growl from Swan that would have made any Sith Lord proud, the whisker-faced blonde pulled his face out of Padme's lovely assets and said, "All right, everyone stay low and crawl quickly towards the hallway. Hurry now." Senator Amidala and her party were too shocked to completely realize what was going on and regrouped in the hall. "Where's Master Swan going?" asked Cord. "She's off after the shooter," explained Naruto seriously. "We need to call security and get Senator Amidala to safety. Let's take the elevator down." Roof of Padme's penthouse. Master Bolter Swan emerged on the roof of the apartment high-rise and reached out with the force to feel around her. She sensed the great pain the sniper was in as well as anger and homed in on it. Walking out to the edge of the high-rise, the GD Master leapt off the rim and landed on the back of a transport only to use it as a springboard to flip over to a speeder and then another and another. With a combination of parkour, acrobatics and death-defying grace she hopped through traffic and landed on the building the sniper was still on. Bolter was smiling at the adrenaline rush as she closed on her target. Stuck in traffic below was none other than GD Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and his Padawan Anakin Skywalker. They saw Bolter vault over some speeders above them and Anakin said in awe, "Was that Master Swan?" Obi-Wan looked up and chuckled. "That was Bolter Swan, all right. Graceful, isn't she?" Then his face turned grave. "You and I won't ever be doing anything like that, so banish those thoughts from your head, Anakin." Skywalker looked sullen. "Yes, Master, shall we follow her?" Master Kenobi shook his head. "If she needed help she would have called us mentally when she waved hello to us." "I still think leaping through traffic like that would be wizard, Master," said the 18-year-old Padawan. Obi-Wan looked a bit green. "It would also be tantamount to suicide." Up above, the wounded Muun sniper finished bandaging his wounded side. "I can't believe that damn GD woman deflected the rifle bolt back and hit me," he thought aloud. He hobbled over to his speeder and saw Master Swan land on the building behind him in disbelief. He pointed his blaster at her and screeched, "Not one step closer." She had a gleam in her eyes as she ignited her green lightsaber. Swan said smiling, you don't seem so eager to fire now. Good choice. Are you going to surrender? Never. He yelled as he slammed the throttle forward on his speeder. He didn't notice Bolter dart a tracking device on the back of his armored jacket as he put his Herard off. He ran away, she said. I guess I'll have to pursue him. The GD master looked at her tracker and thought, he won't get too far away winded like that. I guess I'll just call it taxi. Senatorial high-rise building. Taking the elevator down seemed like a good idea at the time, thought Naruto wistfully as he bypassed the sabotage control panel circuits on the lift. Normally he would have enjoyed being stuck on an elevator with 4 beautiful young women, but having Captain Tifo there was a definite turnoff. That and they were plunging deaths, of course. The blonde could sense the surface thoughts and emotions of those around him through the force. Captain Tifo was keeping a cool demeanor but was concerned that they were all going to be reduced to some sort of pate. As for Dorm, her primary concern was keeping her lady safe. Her security training kept her level-headed. The GD thought she was most admirable. Ford was praying to any god that would listen so that she wouldn't throw up and make a fool of herself before she died. The whisker-faced blonde decided not to dwell on that. Being a slicer, Verse was more bipedical and was focusing on Naruto's work. She wondered if he could actually pull this off. Oh, ye of little faith, thought Naruto. When it came to Padme, she was set in stone to be brave for her friends and companions. She couldn't let any of them down by giving in to fear. Naruto felt a little better about her despite his views on politicians in general. Ah. There we go. Said the blonde. Hang on everybody. Suddenly the lift's emergency failure brakes kicked in and they were all pushed to the floor by the sudden slowing. The brakes were overheating rapidly and the smell of something burning reached their nostrils as wisps of smoke leaked in. Naruto reached out to use the force to slow the speeding metal coffin even further. The sound of shrieking from the brakes was getting unbearable when the elevator screeched to a halt. Forcing the door open, the small group found that they had ground to a stop at basement floor 97. Well, that was an interesting little ride. Quipped Naruto as he and Captain Tifo helped Padme and her handmaidens off of the lift. I think you are taking this far too lightly. Replied the senator with disapproval in her eyes. The sass is strong with this one. Thought Naruto. I find that a little levity helps calm the nerves, Senator. Believe me when I say the safety of you and your party are foremost in my mind. The blonde looked for communications terminal and found the floor was old enough that it was abandoned. The group saw several old droids lying about in various states of disrepair when an old astromech droid woke up and it slowly came online making beeps and boop noises that seemed slurred together. Naruto understood the binary language and looked very puzzled. He said, this droid is damaged or impaired in some way. It claims we are intruders. Verse added, it almost sounds like it is drunk. Is that even possible? Asked Captain Tifo. Nodding, Verse said, a damaged motivator unit could have that effect. Let me look at it and. A slot with a plasma torch came open and unleashed a burst which the blonde GD pulled Verse clear from. He activated his orange lightsaber and the droid squealed in fright before it quickly rolled staggered off. Defoe uttered, what in blazes? As the droid retreated shrieking. It was then that they heard moans of mechanical talking and the dragging of metal feet as droids of all shapes and sizes came crawling out everywhere with weapons of all kinds pointed at Naruto and the senator's group. This is not good. Said Naruto as he ushered the others away from danger. Padme said, I have a bad feeling about this. Soon the droids randomly were taking pot shots at the group and Naruto was deflecting the oncoming bolts away as the others fired their blasters at the horde of mindless metal attackers. The blonde soon realized they were being pushed back into a corner and that the whole situation was a trap. Naruto's eyes blazed blue with chakra and he said, get behind me and cease fire. As they did, a glowing orange chakra field shaped like a fox's head blazed into existence. It surrounded Naruto, Padme and the others like a force field and soaked up the torrent of blaster fire coming from the herd of zombie-like droids closing in on them. Just like I showed you, Naruto. Said Kurama. Keep absorbing the energy until it is at the limit and then release it. Naruto was sweating under the strain of absorbing the blaster fire and nodded mentally to his partner. Senator Amidala watched as the blonde drew his hand back and then thrust it forward, releasing both a mighty force push and all the stored blaster fire at once on the unprepared droids. What machines weren't totally destroyed in an instant were crushed into scrap or blown apart by the fusion of chakra and force energies unleashed upon them. When the smoke cleared, it was over. Naruto was kneeling in exhaustion on one knee panting and the conglomeration of droid types was demolished. The blonde took a deep calming breath and said, it seems that threat has been dealt with. We need to get to the upper levels in case more hostile droids are loose. Wow, thought Padme. Who do you think sent them after us, Master GD? She asked. Naruto slowly stood up and dusted himself off. I would surmise that those droids have been down here on their own for years, Senator. They probably would have attacked us regardless of who we were. Unfortunately, I have no proof either way. He pointed at the smoking pile of debris that was once a mob of haywire droids. There is no way that a slicer is going to get much evidence out of that. What about the Trade Federation? Asked the senator. They often use droids. Naruto looked deep in thought. It's possible, but it seems a little too obvious to me. Regardless, getting out of here is more important at this juncture. Captain Tifo was forced to agree. The best thing we can do is get you to the safety of the upper levels, my lady. The Chancellor's security forces will no doubt investigate this for us. Naruto frowned. That's only if it serves the Chancellor's own self-interest. Senator Amidala noticed the look of distaste on Whiskered Jedi Knight's face, and she asked, is there a problem, Master Naruto? Naruto looked at the fiery woman and said, no, it is as Captain Tifo says. Getting you and your handmaidens to safety is paramount. The rest can be dealt with later. Intergalactic Banking Clan Headquarters. DD Master Swan tracked down the sniper at the Intergalactic Banking Clan Headquarters that was also in the Senate District on Coruscant. Arriving via robo-taxi, she hopped out and entered through the main entrance. A secretary stopped her before she could get on the elevator up and said, I'm sorry ma'am, but I'll need to see your Banking Clan membership card to let you use the elevator. Bolter turned to the woman and said in a commanding voice, you've seen my membership card. I've seen your membership card, parroted the secretary. Please carry on and have a nice day, said Master Swan smoothly. The woman droned, please carry on and have a nice day. She motioned towards the elevator and Bolter got aboard with no further trouble. Using her tracker, the GD Master proceeded to floor 57, Suite C, and carefully listened through the locked door. She heard two voices, the sniper and another male. Why did you come here, you idiot? The GD is probably following you, asked the male voice. What was I to do? Asked the sniper. Go to a hospital and try to explain how I was shot with my own rifle. I hired you to take out Senator Amidala, not make excuses for your failure, ranted the male. You came highly recommended as one of the best by Lord Tyrannus. I should sue you for breach of contract. Breach of contract? Growled the assassin. I'm sure failing a hit on a member of the Republic Senate would hold up well in court. Having heard all the evidence she needed, Master Swan used a force push to pry open the door and said, GD business. Do not move. In a commanding tone. The assassin just held his hands up in surrender, but the other male, a Muun banker, pulled a small blaster and fired 3 shots at the GD. Bolter deflected the bolts with her hand before pulling the blaster away from the banker using the force. Are there any other acts of stupidity you want to commit before I take you in? She asked. The banker screeched, you can't prove anything. I want my lawyer. The GD Master rolled her eyes. This kind of idiocy I can do without. I wonder how Naruto is doing. Senatorial high-rise building basement levels. Naruto led the others along using the force to guide him and eventually came to a lift that led back to the upper levels. In front of the lift's entrance stood a single individual, a bone-white Dathomirian female, who was sworn to Count Dooku personally as a Sith assassin. This was Asajj Ventress. It was her first mission for Darth Tyrannus since completing her training under him, and she was determined to bring Senator Padme Amidala's head on a platter to the Count. Ventress was confident in her new skills and planned to make an example of the upstart senator and anyone else who interfered. The blonde GD could feel the sheer hatred radiating off Ventress and said, Captain Tifo, it appears we have an issue I will have to deal with alone. Take the senator and her handmaidens to the lift and go to the surface. Don't look back. Padme immediately spoke up. We will not leave without you, Master GD. We can support you with blaster fire. She was immediately reminded of Qui-Gon Jinn when Naruto shed his outer robes and said, for your safety, Senator, please do as I say. Tifo, attend to your mistress's safety above all else. He turned to Ventress and asked, I don't suppose you'll let my charges pass freely, will you? Ventress activated her twin red lightsabers and snarled, you are dead, GD. Naruto activated his orange lightsaber and said, you are straightforward. I like that. He slid into his QB style and bared his lengthened canines. Then he exclaimed, let's get wild. The last thing the Sith assassin was expecting was a peace-loving GD to use the Gyro style and attack her with a ferocity second to none. After recovering from her initial shock, Ventress took the offensive only to find she was being battered back. Her ice blue eyes widened as she felt the tempo increase and started trying to push Naruto back with a blade lock. Then Asajj felt herself sliding back on the smooth floor. Captain Tifo whispered, let's go, my lady. As he ushered Padme and her 3 handmaidens past a vicious GD duel going on. They made it safely into the lift and her handmaiden Dorm was about to press the buttons to take them to the safety of the upper floors when Senator Amidala raised her hand. We will wait for Master GD Naruto to join us, said Padme. Rieger Tifo replied, but my lady, but was cut off by Padme's glare. We will wait, repeated the senator in an imperious tone. The security captain deflated and he thought, she never took orders too well. Meanwhile, Naruto and Ventress were engaged in a violent dance of death, and Asajj found herself getting more and more angry. The collateral damage was racking up quickly, and Naruto cut a platform between them out, meaning she would have to leap up to his level to re-engage him. Worse still, Naruto had been thrashing her with Terra's Kasi whenever they locked blades. She was bruised and hurting, and now sported a massive shiner from being punched in the eye. Damn it, that hurt. What a cheap shot. She thought angrily. And now he has the high ground. Naruto's blazing blue eyes were glaring down at her and beckoning Asajj to come face her death. She was of three minds on the matter. "I'm gonna get you, sucker," was her first thought. Her second thought was, "How would you like a job? Come to the dark side. Count Dooku is hiring and we have great benefits." Her third thought she actually went with though. "Savor your victory while you can, Jedi. You have won this round." The blonde watched Ventress stalk away steaming in anger and decided it was best to leave well enough alone. He had to bite his tongue to keep from saying, "Let's do this again sometime. Or you're cute when you're angry." But Naruto figured that might throw her into an even more homicidal rage which he didn't want to deal with right now. He telekinetically grabbed his robes and put them on before turning towards the lift where the others were still waiting. He wanted to face palm as Captain Tifo did his best to look apologetic. Naruto rounded on Padme and asked, "Why did you not follow my orders, Senator? If I had fallen you would not have survived her onslaught. This isn't a game, you know." Amidala's eyebrow twitched in anger. "Why are you Jedi so set on making martyrs of yourselves? I ordered the others to wait in case you needed help. You should be grateful." The Jedi sensed a migraine coming on. He noticed the floor they were on was still close 100 floors below ground. Hitting the button to go up to the ground floor, Naruto said, "Now see here, Senator. Basement floor 80. "No, you listen to me, Jedi," said Padme. "I'm not about to have my life dominated by some mystic knowledge of the Force. You knights can be so haughty." "Haughty? I've spent most of my life training to protect others," growled Naruto. "When I say it's dangerous, your person is in danger." Basement floor 50. Now the blonde was steamed. "So suppose you had opened fire with your blasters. That dark acolyte was quite powerful. She would have deflected the blaster bolts back at you or into me. It would have been to her advantage. Surely we could have provide adequate cover fire for you to escape," retorted the senator. "Not if I was dead," roared the Jedi. Basement floor 30. "Is she always so obstinate?" Naruto asked the others. Captain Tifo just cringed while the three handmaidens Cord, Verse and Dorm all nodded rapidly from outside of Padme's peripheral vision. "Obstinate?" shrieked the short brunette senator. "Look in the mirror if you want to see obstinate." "You're projecting," hissed Naruto. Ground floor. The senator and the Jedi were both glaring at each other as if daring one another to utter one single word. Everyone else was on needles and pins. That's when the lift door opened and Master Yoda and Master Mace Windu were standing there waiting for the lift. Yoda said with a twinkle in his eye, "Ah, fortuitous timing we have. Senator Amidala, unharmed I see. Good, it does my heart." Master Windu asked, "Did anything of note during your watch, Naruto?" Naruto looked at Mace Windu and Yoda with fatigue in his eyes and thought, "What a woman." As he glanced at Padme. Carefully choosing his words, Naruto said, "Masters, the suspicions that someone is after Senator Amidala are correct. Several bolts from a blaster rifle were fired at her this morning in her apartment. Then the lift to her room was sabotaged and dropped to the 97th basement floor level. We were then attacked by a zombie droid army which I was forced to obliterate. Then a dark acolyte attacked us on the way to the lift. We rode up to the ground floor. I was able to fend her off fortunately. Luckily we came out relatively unscathed." Padme looked at Naruto for a split second and thought, either I'm going to love him or kill him, whichever comes first. Jedi Knight Naruto did an excellent job of protecting us from harm. Mace Windu retained his stoic look, but his eyes widened a bit. A zombie droid army. Grandmaster Yoda's eyes also widened and his ears rose in alarm. "A dark acolyte, you say? Much we have to discuss." About that time Jedi Master Swan arrived having dropped off her prisoners and said with a bow, "Masters, it is good to see you well. So what did I miss?" Naruto just sweat dropped. Jedi Knight Naruto Uzumaki was finishing a dreadful month-long reconnaissance mission on the arid, old Sith capital world of Korriban, where the Commerce Guild was cooperating with Count Dooku. The blonde had gathered enough evidence to prove the guild had thrown in their lot with the separatist cause beyond any form of doubt. Naruto wasn't surprised, but the whole situation still disgusted him. Under the leadership of Shumai, the Commerce Guild had been using their power illegally in the Outer Rim for years, so he supposed their move to the separatist cause was a natural one given profit was involved. The blonde felt unclean both physically and spiritually. He was scruffy, unshaven, and his spiky blonde hair was getting long and dirty from the dirt and sand. Korriban was a cesspool of the dark side of the Force. It gave him a sickeningly sweet feeling that was revolting and alluring at the same time. Naruto was both tempted and repelled by the darkness of the twilight-filled landscape. Worse still were visions he'd been having on the distorted world, thanks to the nearness of the Valley of the Dark Lords that was haunted by Sith spirits who tried to lure the blonde into the valley itself. They promised him power and knowledge beyond comprehension, but Naruto was wise enough to simply avoid the trap that so many Force users had fallen into before. The young Jedi Knight also had visions of a war on the desolate planet called Geonosis on the last night he spent on Korriban. Climbing into the cockpit of his Delta 7B starfighter, Naruto took off towards the core worlds to Coruscant. Core words, Kuroska Sector, Planet Coruscant, Jedi Grand Temple. The Jedi High Council was listening to Naruto's report on Korriban with a mixture of skepticism and disbelief. Naruto was talking to them via holographic projection. Masters, I never knew Count Dooku when he was an active Jedi Master. I can tell you that he was in a meeting with Shumai of the Commerce Guild and that he was moving freely and without any issues in areas where the dark side is stifling to the senses. Mace Windu replied, Naruto, Count Dooku is a political idealist, not a. I'm sorry Master Windu, but Count Dooku has fallen to the dark side. It wrapped itself around him like a cloak. Said Naruto emphatically. He is carousing with some of the worst corporate scum in the galaxy. He is not the paragon of virtue that you all believe him to be. I admit my foresight is nothing compared to the council's, but you must listen to me. War is coming and we need the clone army that Master Swan and I discovered 2 years ago to help us. Ayadimundi said, and exactly where is this war you can foresee, but we cannot young Uzumaki. Planet Geonosis on the outer rim. Said Naruto. I saw it clearly on the last night I spent on Korriban. Several council members thought this was ludicrous, but Master Yoda held up his clawed hand and asked, exactly what did you see young Naruto? Your vision, share it with us. Yes my master. Replied Naruto. I saw nearly 200 Jedi wiped out before the clone army arrived to reinforce them. They were fighting thousands of battle droids. It was a Pyrrhic victory at best. The pain and suffering was unbearable. I know it sounds fantastical, but we Jedi are peacekeepers. We cannot fight a war of this scale without that clone army to help us. Master Sifo Dyas foresaw this over a decade ago. Plo Koon asked, how long were you on Korriban Naruto? Your vision may have been terribly distorted by the dark side. Naruto sighed. I was there nearly a month master. If the council will not believe me then send a scout to Geonosis who is impartial, I beg of you. The council sat in silence at Naruto's plea for several tense moments before Yoda nodded and said, by the council's will, a scout will be sent. Thank you master. Said Naruto gratefully. The Grandmaster nodded. In the meantime, to Naboo you must go. In grave danger, your friend Senator Amidala is. Her safety, you must ensure. The Jedi Knight is not with her? Asked the blonde. Mace Windu said, young Skywalker is with her. His inexperience is showing though. You can both guide Anakin and recover from your experiences on Korriban on planet Naboo. The council's decree, this is. Said Yoda. May the force be with you. Mid-Rim, Chamel Sector, planet Naboo, capital city of Theed. A week later, Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala arrived at the Theed Royal Palace, where they were discussing their situation with Queen Jamilia and her advisory council, chaired by Governor Seo Bibble. In the meantime we must consider your own safety. Said the Queen to Senator Amidala. Bibble asked, what is your suggestion Master Jedi? Padme smiled, oh Anakin is not a Jedi yet, he's still a Padawan learner, but I was thinking. Hold on a minute. Interjected Anakin with a frown. Excuse me. Retorted Padme sternly. I was thinking I would stay out in the Lake Country. There are some places out there that are very isolated. And excuse me but I am in charge of security my lady. Said the Padawan angrily. Seo Bibble and Queen Jamilia glanced at each other dismayed and Bibble said, begging both your pardons, but I meant that Master Jedi. As he motioned beside them. The currently bearded Naruto was standing there plain as day. He said, hello there Senator Amidala, Anakin. It's good to see you both so spirited. Naruto Uzumaki? Asked the Padawan in shock. How long have you been here? How did he sneak up on me? The blonde grinned and said, I've been here all along, just watching the show. Padme smiled widely and exclaimed, Naruto. It is so good to see you. What are you doing here? Then she came over to him with an appraising eye and said, lose the beard. It makes you look old. Naruto's sweat dropped. In answer to your questions, I'm recovering from my last mission and I'm here to help Anakin keep you safe Senator that and I've been growing this incredibly sexy beard. Senator Amidala titled her head to the side and said, an incredibly sexy beard that needs to be shaven off. The Jedi shrugged and looked at the Padawan. Unless you have a better idea Anakin, I think it would be wise if we took advantage of the Senator's knowledge in this instance. This is her home and if Lake Country is secluded then so much the better. Skywalker put on a fake smile and said, sorry my lady, Lake Country it is. Perfect, it's settled then. Said Queen Jamilia with a grateful nod towards Naruto. Beyond Outer Rim, planet Kamino, Topoka City. Having only a Kamino saber dart as evidence, Obi-Wan Kenobi was pursuing the sole clue he had on the bounty hunter after Senator Padme Amidala. It led him to the planet Kamino, where Jedi Master Bolter Swan was temporarily the acting liaison for the Jedi Order. Obi-Wan landed during a torrential rainstorm and found Master Swan waiting for him at the landing pad entrance. She looked at Kenobi's drenched appearance and said with a smirk, "Welcome to Topoka City, Obi-Wan. I've been expecting you. I received your transmission and have found that there is a bounty hunter residing here. He's the genetic template for the clone army and goes by the name Jango Fett." Master Kenobi asked, "Do you have any background on him?" Bolter replied, "Not much, he keeps to himself. Jango Fett has an unaltered clone of himself named Boba Fett for a son and uses Mandalorian weapons and armor. He has a reputation of being one of the best bounty hunters in the galaxy. I can't tell you much more as I've never actually met him. I'm sure that the Kaminoans could set up a meeting for you though. Do you want me to join you?" "No," said Obi-Wan. "You already have your hands full with your duties here. I just want to talk to this bounty hunter and find out who hired him. Hopefully it won't resort in a violent conflict of interests." "I wouldn't count on it," said Bolter. "I'll keep my communicator active just in case. Actually I have a better idea. I'm going to set a tracking device on Fett's ship while you go talk to him." Shortly thereafter Bolter set the tracker up on Fett's ship while Master Kenobi talked to Jango Fett about the clone army. By the time Obi-Wan came back to inform her he'd talked to the bounty hunter, Fett was in the process of leaving. "What did you find out, Obi-Wan?" asked Master Swan. Kenobi replied, "I asked Jango Fett about the creation of the clone army and the details surrounding how he met Jedi Master Sifo Dyas. All he told me was he had never heard of anyone named Sifo Dyas and that he was recruited by someone called Tyrannus. Then I asked him if he'd been to the core worlds recently and he got evasive, so I departed. I would say it was all conducted on very civil terms." Bolter's tracker came online and she said with a grin, "Looks like Fett is already flying the coop. You must have left quite an impression on him." "And it looks like I have a bounty hunter to catch," said Obi-Wan. "May the force be with you, Master Swan." Swan waved and replied, "And with you, Master Kenobi." Mid-Rim, Chamel Sector, Planet Naboo, Lake Country. Naruto found himself in a strange situation. He felt himself relaxing a bit as all of the spiritual tension that had built up in him on Korriban bled off, yet at the same time his clarity in the force seemed much greater now. "I sense some resentment towards me and even jealousy on Skywalker's part. I don't even know why, but I need to clear the air between us." He looked over and saw Anakin staring heatedly at Padme from a distance and her glancing back uncomfortably. The blonde Jedi ambled over to the brunette woman and said quietly, "Beautiful country out here on Naboo. Reminds me of when I was herding nerfs back on Renatasia." Padme tried to keep a straight face but couldn't. "You are telling me you were a nerf herder, PFFFT. That's hilarious." She burst out into laughter. Naruto looked playfully affronted. "Hey, I was a damn good nerf herder. The nerfs all adored me." That elicited another round of laughter from the senator. Naruto felt Anakin's eyes burning holes in his back and said, "Excuse me a moment while I recover my nerf herding pride, Senator Amidala." She made a shooing motion and called after him, "You are dismissed, oh noble nerf herder, and lose the beard." The whole time Anakin had been straining to hear the conversation and was growing angrier by the moment as he sat there. Then he overheard Padme's laughter and her calling Naruto a nerf herder of all things, and his anger turned to puzzlement. Naruto walked up and said, "Come on Anakin, walk with me. I can tell you are tense even without the force. What's on your mind, my friend?" He held out his hand to pull the Padawan up and after a moment Anakin took it. "So you were a real, honest-to-goodness nerf herder?" asked Anakin, snickering as they walked along. "You're a brave man to admit that to a former queen." Naruto chuckled. My sordid past has come back to bite me in the ass again. It's nothing new." Feeling a little more at ease, Skywalker asked, "So what is it you wanted to talk about?" The Jedi Knight looked out towards the horizon and said, "Your infatuation with the senator is clouding your judgment, Anakin. When I was talking to her I felt your anger skyrocket to the point I thought you were going to go all Sith Lord on me." "It's not infatuation," said the Padawan indignantly. "It's love. You don't know what it feels like. Obi-Wan doesn't know what it's like. No Jedi do." Naruto sighed. "Actually I do know about infatuation. I lusted after an older woman once. I thought it was love at the time, but upon reflection I found that it wasn't." Anakin paused in surprise. "Really? What happened?" The older blonde shook his head. "It was during the war on Renatasia I told you about. She and I were fighter pilots and we had a couple of trysts. I genuinely thought it was forever at the time, then she told me she was married and walked out of my life." Skywalker cringed. "Ouch, that really sucks. Did you ever see her again?" "Nope," replied Naruto. "I never saw her again and I never went back to Renatasia again either. I was deeply hurt, empty and lonely. It took time to heal. You need to reflect on your feelings and decide what you really do feel. I can't tell you what to do, but if it's just a childhood fantasy then you love an ideal in your mind, not Padme Amidala. If nothing else, think about her feelings on the matter. What do you mean? Asked the younger of the pair. What I mean is, does she reciprocate your feelings? Asked the Jedi Knight. She looked uncomfortable to me. Anakin thought for a moment and said glumly, I guess I have a lot of thinking to do. Naruto patted his shoulder. I'd rather not see you get hurt, Anakin. It's hard with all those hormones flying through you at light speed. Believe me, I do know. You sure seem to know a lot for someone close to my age. Said Skywalker. The Jedi Knight grinned. It's all about hurting nerfs, my friend. It teaches you to be patient and reflect. You don't necessarily have to be old to be wise. Outer Rim Territories, Arcana Sector, Planet Geonosis. Humming out of hyperspace, Obi-Wan Kenobi found himself close to the asteroid-filled rings of Planet Geonosis. He was even closer to Jango Fett's ship Slave Eye, and they ended up in a dogfight among the asteroids. For several minutes they twisted, turned and spun in and amongst the asteroids, with Jango Fett firing seismic charges and everything else he could bring to bear. Eventually the Jedi Master fooled his opponent into believing his ship had been destroyed by a Seeking missile. Kenobi was going to follow Fett down to the surface of the planet when he intercepted a transmission from another Jedi on the ground at Geonosis. It was his old friend and fellow Jedi Master Siri Tachi, who had already landed on the planet as a scout for the Council the day before. There are a multitude of Trade Federation ships down here, Obi-Wan. Said Siri. I've infiltrated the place and I'm moving out. It's a summit and they are preparing for a full-scale war. I overheard Count Dooku himself addressing the Separatist Council, and he is behind the attempts on Senator Amidala's life at the request of the Trade Federation Viceroy Newt Gunray. My long-range transmitter is being jammed and I fear they are on to me. I don't have the means to send my report directly to the Jedi Council, so I need you to relay it for me. I understand, Siri. Said Kenobi. I'll get into contact with Coruscant and relay your message to the Jedi Council. I'm ready to receive your full report. She transmitted, I have scouted out the droid foundries on Geonosis. The Trade Federation is to take delivery of a droid army here, and it is clear that Viceroy Gunray is behind the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala. The Commerce Guild and the Corporate Alliance have both pledged their armies to Count Dooku and are forming a wait. She was cut off by blaster fire and the transmission cut out. Mid-Rim, Chamel Sector, Planet Naboo, Lake Country. Naruto awoke feeling a disturbance from Skywalker's room. He heard the younger man cry out for his mother. The whiskered blonde burst into Anakin's room and saw the boy was hyperventilating and immediately went to his side. Anakin saw Naruto there and Padme standing in the doorway. Did he have a nightmare? Asked Padme. I heard him call out. The Jedi placed a calming hand on Anakin and said, breathe, Skywalker. Slow down and breathe. Feeling the Padawan's breathing and heartbeat slowed down and even out, Naruto asked, did you have a vision? The younger man nodded. What did you see, Anakin? It's Mimi, mother. She's in pain, terrible pain. I could see her as clearly as I see you two in front of me. Replied the Padawan. I can't stay here. I have to go to her before it's too late. Naruto had mixed feelings, but then remembered his first master Jiraiya saying, sometimes the Force gives us insights that goes against logic or mandates. It's in that pivotal moment that you either act or live with whatever consequences result, good or bad. Where is your mother now? Asked Naruto. Anakin had hope shining in his eyes. She's on Tatooine in the Outer Rim Territories. I'm going to regret this. Said the Jedi Knight. Trust in your feelings, Anakin. You can take my Delta 7B, I will keep an eye on Senator Amidala. The Padawan closed his eyes and shed a single tear. Thank you, Naruto Uzumaki, you don't know how much this means to me. We will wait here for the news from you. Said Naruto somberly as he and Padme saw Anakin off. May the Force be with you. Anakin nodded. And may the Force be with you as well. I will call you as soon as I find something out. The fighter soon took off out into space and made the jump to hyperspace. There he goes. Said Padme in a worried tone. I hope he'll be alright. As do I, replied the Jedi Knight gravely. He's not ready for this sort of thing. I hope he is able to rescue his mother safely. I fear the worst otherwise. Then Padme's eyes narrowed and she growled, incidentally, why was there a painting of a naked woman on the side of your fighter? Not to mention the name booby trap. Naruto was sweating and replied, it's a tribute to my first Jedi Master Jiraiya, lover of beautiful women. It's sexist and indecent, you pig. Roared the brunette. Oh come on, Senator, it's not that bad. Said the whiskered blonde. The original name was Milkwagon Express, but I toned it down. Steam came jetting out of her ears. What, just die? Die in the name of every feminist ever born. Naruto thought, I guess that's my cue to run. Poor words, Coruscant Sector, Planet Coruscant, Jedi Grand Temple. In the meantime, Tachi's report came into the council as Obi-Wan related. I have scouted out the droid foundries on Geonosis. The Trade Federation is to take delivery of a droid army here, and it is clear that Viceroy Gunray is behind the assassination attempts on Senator Amidala. The Commerce Guild and the Corporate Alliance have both pledged their armies to Count Dooku and are forming a wait. I've been the council saw she was cut off by blaster fire and the transmission cut out. The GD Council was alarmed by Ciri's report and the fact she was captured didn't help calm them down any. More happening on Geonosis I feel than has been revealed, said Grandmaster Yoda gravely. Mace Windu frowned and said, I agree. He immediately transmitted to Obi-Wan, Master Kenobi, stay there and relay any further information you can gather from orbit. This is your first priority. We will come there and deal with Count Dooku. I understand, Master, replied Obi-Wan. I'll do what I can from orbit without getting spotted. He quickly signed off. It seems that young Jedi Knight Naruto Uzumaki was right all along, said Plo Koon. Indeed it does, replied Yoda. Clouded, our vision is. Most concerning. Master Windu said, we don't have much time. Contact Master Bolter Swan. Send her the orders to activate the clone army and bring them to Geonosis. We will meet her on the way. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.